She left him for a rich man after 2 years of building together. She took her desk, left her key, and wrote him a note that said, "I love you, but I'm tired of waiting." He didn't chase her. He didn't beg. He picked up a pen on the 4th day and finished building the empire she walked out of. And here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your identity. Because when someone who shared your vision walks out, it doesn't feel like losing a person. It feels like losing the proof that you were worth staying for. Most people do one of two things after that kind of loss. They chase, or they collapse. They spend the next year trying to win back someone who already made their choice. Or they shrink, trade the original dream for something smaller, something that doesn't remind them of what they lost. But there's a third option, and it is the one nobody talks about, because it's the hardest and the least dramatic. It doesn't make a good revenge story. It makes something better, a real one. In this video, I'm going to walk you through Daniel's story, chapter by chapter, and show you exactly what he did in the silence after she left, how he turned discipline into a blueprint, how he found a woman who chose to build with him rather than wait to benefit from him, and what he said, calmly, without anger, when she came back 5 years later. Because the truth this story carries is this: love can start to build, but only discipline finishes it. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the most powerful thing that ever happened to Daniel was the day she left. Before betrayal, before the discipline, before any of it, there was a kitchen, a small kitchen in a small apartment, where the electricity ran on a meter and the table wobbled on 3 good legs, where 2 people, both broke, both building, sat down one night and shared what little they had. His name was Daniel, 26 years old, working 2 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, saving money in increments so small they barely registered. But behind those tired eyes was something that doesn't come from money or background or luck. It was fire, quiet, sustained, long-burning fire. Her name was Serena, 24. She had moved into the apartment next door 2 weeks earlier with 2 bags and a business idea she couldn't yet afford to execute. A fashion accessories brand she believed in so completely that she'd walked away from a stable job to pursue it. Before she had a single paying customer. The night they sat together, it wasn't planned. She knocked because she smelled food. He let her in because he'd made too much. And then they talked and talked. "What do you want?" she asked him, halfway through the meal. "Everything," he said, without hesitation, without performance. She smiled. It was exactly the right answer. They spoke until 3 a.m., about businesses they would build, about the life they intended to construct with their own hands, from nothing, about the kind of freedom that doesn't come from someone giving it to you, but from you refusing to stop until you've earned it. By the end of that night, without a ring, without ceremony, without any formal declaration, they made a promise to each other. They would build an empire together, or they would burn trying. Now, listen, I need you to understand something about that moment. It was not naive. It was not the fantasy of 2 people who had never known hardship. It was a covenant between 2 people who had looked at the world clearly, understood exactly how difficult it would be, and chose each other and the dream simultaneously. That is a rare thing, and it deserved a rare ending. When 2 people face the same direction, they don't just walk together. They multiply each other's speed. What they had in that kitchen was real. I want you to hold on to that, because what's coming in this story is going to try to make you forget it. The 2 years that followed were the most alive either of them had ever felt. Not because things were easy. They weren't. The money stayed tight. The wins were small. There were weeks when they questioned everything, including each other. There were Friday nights spent arguing over strategy instead of resting. Saturday mornings combing through numbers that refused to add up the way they needed. But here is what nobody talks about when they tell you to find your person. The deepest intimacy doesn't come from the good days. It comes from the days you almost quit, and the person beside you didn't let you. They shared a workspace in the corner of their living room. 2 desks pushed together. Her mood board on one wall. Color swatches, fabric samples, names of accessories she hadn't made yet, but could already see clearly in her mind. His whiteboard on the other, routes, vendors, delivery windows, margins. Serena's accessories business was growing. Slowly, but growing. She'd landed her first 5 consistent clients. She was hand-making pieces on the kitchen table and delivering them herself. Daniel's logistics microservice had begun picking up local contracts, small vendors who needed deliveries they could afford. He'd bought a second-hand van with 3 months of saved income and hired a part-time driver. Every small win they celebrated, not lavishly, a shared meal, a walk, the particular joy of 2 people who know exactly what it costs to arrive at this specific moment. She stayed late the night he lost his biggest client. She didn't say much. She just stayed. He cooked for 3 days straight when a bulk order she'd been counting on got returned without explanation. They were not just in love. They were partners in the truest sense of the word. 2 people who had chosen each other and the dream simultaneously and refused to separate those 2 choices. I want you to sit with that image for a moment. 2 desks pressed together. Shared exhaustion. Shared belief. Because this is a part of the story that makes everything that follows so important to understand. What they built in those 2 years was not nothing. It was a foundation. Real concrete, laid with real hands. The question that will define the rest of the story, is what you do with a foundation when one of the builders walks away before the walls go up. His name was Marcus, 41 years old. Built from a family business, he'd expanded aggressively over 15 years. The kind of man who doesn't think about what things cost because the answer is always manageable. The kind of presence that fills a room not with noise, but with the quiet authority of someone who has never had to wait for what he wanted. He met Serena at a business networking event she attended to find new clients. She was working the room the way she always did. Focused, professional, her accessories laid out on a small display table in the corner. Marcus bought her entire first collection, not as an investor, as a gift. She told Daniel about it that night. He was happy for her. A bulk purchase like that was exactly the kind of break they'd been working toward. He said so. She agreed. They celebrated. What neither of them examined too closely in that moment was what kind of man buys an entire collection from a woman he's just met and gives it as a gift. Over the following weeks, Marcus called with opportunities, a connection to a boutique that might carry her line, an introduction to a distributor, a lunch to discuss partnerships. Each thing was legitimate on its surface, and Serena was a businesswoman. She followed every lead. But there was something else happening, slower and quieter than any of the business conversations. She was beginning to feel the difference between what she was building and what Marcus already had. Not greed, not shallowness, something more human than both of those. Exhaustion. She had been building for 2 years. The dream was real, and she still believed in it. But the gap between where they were and where she wanted to be, when you're tired, that gap can start to look like evidence that the road doesn't lead anywhere. Marcus was the road that had already arrived. She started dressing differently for their meetings, came home a little later, told herself it was networking, told herself it was for both of them, and maybe, in the beginning, she even believed it. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, but when the water has been rough long enough, even the best sailors start looking at the shore. The seed of what was coming had been planted. Neither of them knew it yet, but the distance had already begun.